Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first session of our three-part social media workshop series, Social Media Strategy, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, led by digital marketing expert Kristen Naher, CEO of Bootcamp Digital. This first session, Social Media Strategy for Small Businesses, focuses on strategy and content planning. This workshop is meant to be highly interactive, so Krista will be taking questions and comments throughout this 90-minute session. Simply type them in the chat box in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen throughout the session. Please note this session is being recorded so you can view it again. Let's get started, everyone. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. I am very, very excited for this session because we essentially have 3 sessions together where we're going to start at strategy and work ourselves all the way up to sort of executional tips and measurement. So you really have everything you need to execute social media well, because what I know is all of you and all of us are busy business owners or busy with, trying to get the day-to-day stuff out there, and making sure that your marketing is working for you is vital to your success. But most of us have other things going on as well. So my hope in our time together today is that we can laser focus on the strategy side of things so that we can really kind of think about why we're doing everything we're doing and get a little more targeted and focused in our efforts there. And then we'll translate that over the next 2 workshops into exactly what it means for you. So a few logistics as we kick off. If you have any questions, you can certainly feel free to type them into the chat box. I will have that open throughout the session, so I'll be able to see any questions that you ask there. If you do want to ask a question verbally, you can feel free to raise your hand and I will get notified of that. And then I can sort of call on you and you can come off of mute to ask your question. You can also just feel free to jump in and unmute yourself at any time. I will be taking questions as we go, so I'm going to keep an eye on the chat throughout. If I don't answer your question right away, it's because I'm going to get to it later. So rest assured, all of your questions will be answered throughout our time together today to make sure you have everything you need. Now, to prepare us to make the most out of our time together, I have put together some really cool resources for you. And if we could share the link to the Dropbox in the chat. So you'll see in the chat in just a second, a link pop up to a Dropbox where you'll be able to download all of the resources. And I want to draw your attention to the things that we have put together for you, because really what we want to do is make sure that you have everything you need to be successful, to make the most out of the time that we have together. So let me just give me 1 second. Oops, I'm sharing the wrong screen. Hang on 1 second. Let me just show you what we've put together so that you can see all of the resources. But if you click in that Dropbox, you're going to see a number of different things that we've made available to help you to really make the most out of this. So here we go. This is what you'll find when you look in the Dropbox. The first thing, what I'd like you to open now is the action planner. Now, I've provided it in both a PDF and a Word version. So if you are on a computer and you want to edit this as you go, you can use the Word version. If you prefer to sort of just have something to look at and maybe you want to write down your notes, definitely stick with the PDF. So either of those is fine. So you should see the action planner, and this will walk you through step by step everything we cover over the 3 sessions. So it's not just for today, it's for all of the 3 sessions. You'll also see the workshop here, and that's a copy of the slides that we covered today. So if there's anything you want to be able to refer back to, you have a PDF version of the slides. The next thing you'll see is this folder called Additional Resources. And here I've created tons of different things for you that you can use in order to implement what we've talked about over the time together. And so you'll see everything from a strategy template to some content marketing best practices. We also have a content calendar template that you can use, etc. So all of this stuff we will go through throughout the sessions, but I want to make sure you see all of the things that you have available to you, because our vision for this is to be able to impact and grow your bottom line and your results. And so FTD really wanted to make sure you have everything you need, as did I. So hopefully these are valuable to you, and you will continue to have access to them throughout the next 3 weeks. So feel free to pop in, download and access anything that you need. You have everything you need to get started. So hopefully you've all been able to access the Dropbox. If you have any issues, just let us know and we can help you out with that. But with that, let's dive in and get started. Today, we're really going to focus on strategy and content. So if we think about sort of the bigger picture of social media, or even the bigger picture of digital, or even the bigger picture of marketing, there's a lot to it. But the starting point is always strategy, strategy, strategy. And strategy sometimes feels like a loaded term, right? I've done marketing for 20 years. I started at Procter & Gamble, arguably the best marketing company in the world, probably depending on who you ask. But then I've marketed all sorts of businesses. And everyone talks about strategy and being strategic, but what do they really mean? And we're going to dive in, and I want to keep this super practical for you so that you're really starting to think about how what you're doing grows your business results, because that's really at the end of the day what a strong strategy means. Then we're going to dive in and start talking about how you can optimize your content and really what you can do to make your content stand out in a social media world. In the second session, which is next week, that's where we're going to talk about channel optimization. So we'll talk specifically about Facebook and Instagram and sort of how you can get the most out of those channels by growing your following, posting strategic content, and optimizing sort of everything you do. And I have some really cool tricks for you in that session as well. Then our third session is going to sort of focus on workflow, measurement, and kind of how to optimize your time. We sent out a survey, it's now been maybe a month or so ago, to get feedback on this session. And there was one thing that was far and away the most requested thing that people wanted to figure out that came through in the results. And it wasn't even something we asked. So we said, oh, do you want to learn about Facebook? Do you want to learn about this? Do you want to learn about that? At the end, there was an open-ended question. And the number one thing people said is, I don't have the time to do all this. I want help with time management and how to get more done with less time. And so that's what we'll focus on as well at the end, is how you can sort of optimize your time in order to make the most out of it. So that's kind of the vision for all three of them. Today, we'll focus on defining your strategy and planning your content, because regardless of what channels you use in social or digital, you're going to want to have a clear strategy and want to have your content clearly mapped out. So the big idea here is that when we look at digital, there's a lot of stuff you could do, right? This is our little map of the digital ecosystem. There's others that have, even more stuff in them. And the thing to keep in mind is there's no end to what you could do. The question is really what you should do. And how can you best optimize your time and energy to get the best results possible? And so the way that you do that is with a clear strategic plan. So often what I hear from business owners, and I think, to be honest with you, social media experts are the worst at this, because you can say, oh, should I be on TikTok? And someone's going to say, yes, you must be on TikTok. Here's how it's going to be so cool for you. And as a business owner or marketer, it can start to feel really overwhelming because there's just so many things and you have only so much time and attention, which I think is why time showed up at the top of that list. So what we want to figure out is, how do we be as strategic as possible and use our energy wisely to maximize our results? Because here's some food for thought as you think about how you go forward. And we're going to talk about optimization tomorrow. But you don't need to do everything well. You need to do a handful of things very well. Generally speaking, if you try to do everything, you end up doing a lot of things sort of okay. And when you do that, it can be hard to develop traction, right? Or to really, get the ball rolling on any of them, because you're just kind of on the hamster wheel trying to get stuff done. And so when we have a clearer vision of what we want to achieve, we'll be better able to really choose the tools that make more sense for us and focus in our strategy. So What we're really going to focus on today is step 2, which is marketing strategy. And then we'll talk a little bit about content and target audience as well. So kind of the green and the first 2 yellows in this circle is really where we're going to focus. Then we'll focus on implementation and measurement and all of that stuff next. So I want to share with you sort of a personal experience about why this is so important. And then I also want to talk to you a little bit about how you can start thinking about this differently for your specific business. So I'm here speaking with you today, right? One of the things I do is I'm a paid professional speaker. This is literally what I do for a living, right? So I've been on social media for like 15 years, since the very beginning. I was even on MySpace. I don't know if anyone's on MySpace, say MySpace is awesome in the chat. But I got started in social media a long time ago. And then I, built a professional presence, right? And if somebody said, "Hey, Krista, why are you on social media?" I would say, "Well, I'm building my brand as an expert and I'm creating awareness and I want to reach more people." And if you were to look at what I was doing, you would say, "Well, it kind of makes sense. You want to be a social media expert. You post stuff about social media. You seem smart. Great job." But if I step back for a second, the question I need to ask myself is, well, like, what am I trying to actually get out of this? And is it getting me that at the end of the day? Like, why do I want to be an expert? What is it I want to have happen? So I was literally doing this workshop and I thought, man, I'm telling everyone this and I'm not doing it well enough. So I stepped back and I built a strategy for myself. And I said, okay, my goal is to get paid speaking engagements. So now I have a goal in mind, not just, well, I do social media, so I'm going to be there, or not like, well, I'm a florist, so I'm going to post pictures of flowers, right? This is kind of like how a lot of us kind of let ourselves off the hook in really being strategic. And I've done it too, right? So I said, okay, let me rethink. And Jennifer, I like your comment. The dinosaurs were still on the planet back when we were on MySpace. Thank you for that. Now we're all old. But so I said, okay, I need to be strategic. So I have a goal now. I want to get speaking engagements. Now I can say, well, what is the best way to achieve that? And I said, well, I need to build my presence with meeting and event planners. So now I have a really specific target audience and I have a really specific goal of what I want to achieve. So then I said, okay, well, how am I going to do that? And rather, at the time I was on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, everything. I was like, look, if I want to reach meeting and event planners, I'm going to focus on using my blog to share expert content, and I'm going to join and post it in LinkedIn groups. So I just did 2 things, but I did them with laser sharp focus. And as a result, 3 to 6 months later, I had booked 3 paid speaking engagements. I also did a webinar for the largest meeting and event planners group, who, by the way, I had emailed a ton of times saying, "Can I speak for you? Can I speak for you?" And they said, "No, no, no." And suddenly they came to me. And here's what the difference is. So I have like a prop, and this is the perfect prop, right? Maybe I should have used like an actual flower, but here's how I think about it, right? Is, let's say I put this on the other side of the room and I want to water it. I can use a sprinkler, and sure, some of the water will get to the plant, but most of it is just going all over the room. I want to use like a water gun and get it. I want 80% of the water into this plant and to stop wasting it because I'm not focused. And that is what I'm going to show you how to do with your strategy, is to improve your focus. Because now here's where I'm going to link it exactly to you. I've worked with FTD now for many years. Some of you maybe have seen me doing these before. I've done these webinars covering all sorts of social media and digital topics for a long time now. And when I had this insight when I was preparing for this training today, I was looking at all posts of florists on social media, and 90% of what you see is this stuff right here. Flowers, flowers everywhere, right? Of course, you're florists. So you're probably saying, well, yeah, okay, this is fine. How many of you would say your Instagram feeds look somewhat like this? Just lots and lots of pictures of beautiful flowers. It's easy to post lots of pictures of flowers because they're beautiful. You sell flowers and people probably like to look at their pictures, right? I see people who I'm friends with posting pictures of flowers all the time. But here's what I would challenge you to ask yourself. How specifically is this type of content growing your business results? Now, I'm not saying never post this stuff. There is a place for this type of content, and I'm going to go into that. So if this is what your Instagram looks like, don't feel horrible, right? This is what everyone is doing. But what we want to think a little bit more about is what are the different things specifically we are trying to achieve? And then what kind of content supports those, so that if I showed you a picture from your Instagram feed or your Facebook page and said, what are you trying to do with this exactly? You would know exactly what you're trying to do with it and be able to articulate it, because that's really the first step to success. A lot of people will say to me, hey, Krista, what do you think of my page? And I'll say, well, what are you trying to do? If you want to promote flowers, this is a great way to promote flowers in general. If you want to drive people to walk through your doors, if you want to grow brand awareness, you're going to struggle to do those things with this type of content, because one of the things that I think is worth noting when you look at these pictures is they could come from almost anyone. How are your pictures like this different from the place down the street or 2 blocks over or wherever else? And that's what we want to think about, is building a distinctive presence with clear goals and objectives to maximize your results. So don't feel bad if it looks this way. Now, I see a comment from Dalton who says, well, I only post our work. You should only post your work. But what I'm going to challenge you to do is to think even more focused around what exactly is the point of every post, and how does that link back to your business growth goals? And I'm going to show you how to do it. And we're all going to, here's where you have work to do today as well, because we're all going to brainstorm, discuss, and share ideas as well. So Dalton, I'm expecting more from you because you've already shared, we can show photos of like the bride to make it more personal. And we're all going to share ideas as we go, because that's how we'll all sort of strengthen things. But what we want to be able to do is say, here's my strategy, and here's the key focus of each post, and here's how it's going to help me to grow my business. Because one of the top things that I hear from every small business owner is, I'm posting, but I don't know for sure if this is really doing anything for me, or how it's helping, or how much it's helping. And that's what I'm going to help you to answer in the session today, is to know exactly why you're posting each thing and how it's helping. And to do that, we're going to focus on this marketing strategy section. So people talk a lot about strategy in what I do for a living. I don't know if you hear this word tossed around a lot, but I hear it all the time. And when I ask people, what does strategy mean? So many people have different ideas. But what strategy really means is that there's a clear purpose behind everything you're doing, and you know how it's growing your business, and you're doing it in the best way possible for your goal. So if my goal of something is to build brand awareness, for example, then I would have a certain type of post. If my goal is to get someone to place a last minute Mother's Day order, I'm going to have an entirely different kind of post. And if I just want people to feel like flowers are great, then I'm going to have a totally different kind of post. So what we want to start thinking about is honing in on what the purpose of our social media is broadly, but take that down to every single post and say, okay, what kind of content should I focus on where? And here's the deal, guys. I am an expert at digital marketing, and I have worked with FTDs for many years, but you are the experts on selling flowers. So for this session to work, you're going to help to sort of brainstorm the content ideas that support the different stages of the marketing funnel. Because what we want to be able to do, we look at these sort of 5 stages of the funnel. I'm going to explain each one to you, and then we're going to brainstorm together different types of content that would achieve those objectives. And so the more ideas that you can share, if there's something that worked for you or something you saw or an idea that comes to mind, the better we'll all be in terms of having ideas. So the first stage, we're starting at stage 1, which is attract. This is often called brand awareness. And when I ask people, well, why are you posting this stuff on social media? They'll say to build brand awareness. Great. But if we want to build brand awareness, what we need to keep in mind is that your goal isn't to build awareness for flowers. Your goal of brand awareness, right? Because you're not in the business of promoting flowers in general, presumably, maybe FTD actually is, right? But you are if you say you're building brand awareness, that means people know your brand. I used to work on Tide laundry detergent. And when Tide would talk about awareness, right, it's not awareness for how clean clothes are good. It's awareness for what Tide laundry detergent does. And so with awareness, what we want to do is have people aware that you exist and kind of understand your brand, your store, and a little bit of what you're doing. And so the idea of brand awareness, and this is where a lot of traditional marketing focuses, is to get your message in front of people. And I often call this top of mind awareness. What top of mind awareness means is that if I think, oh, I need to pick up flowers, what comes to my mind? And that's really the goal of awareness. So what's important here is to keep in mind, if you're looking at brand awareness content, your brand, meaning your store name or your logo or your unique identifying factors, need to be present. Otherwise, you're building flower awareness and not brand awareness for yourself. So you really need to sort of think about it from a branding strategy. So here what we think about is ways to get your brand integrated more into some of your content. Now, if you guys have ideas of brand awareness content, I'm going to ask you to share it in the chat. And if you have questions, feel free to jump in with your questions as well. But any ideas you have for brand awareness, share them in the chat, because this is what's going to make this workshop great, is our ability to learn from each other. As I said, you're more expert level at what's happening in your industry and how you can promote your own business within this context. But when we think of attract and awareness, we really want to think about the brand awareness for our own florist, right? Our own shop. If I see great flowers, but I think, let me go grab those at the grocery store, that's not an ideal scenario. What you want me thinking about is your business, and your unique value proposition. And so as you think of content that's good for awareness, so what I want you to start doing here, and this is in the action planner, is we're going to start writing down all the different ideas that we have for content at each of these stages. And so if you're following along, we're on page 6 of the action planner, and you'll see each stage sort of written out there. And what I want you to do is think of all the ideas you have that can build brand awareness. It doesn't have to just be sort of your logo slapped onto something. You can see I have that in this screenshot. To be honest, it's really hard to find great examples in the floral industry of brand awareness because we mostly are posting the flowers without the context of our brand. But you can see in these examples, they have some logoing built in this case with that bouquet. Even the ribbon that it's wrapped in has the brand on it. So you can see there's a lot of branding in that first one. In this larger screenshot, I would argue this isn't probably the most optimized post for social media. There's a lot of words in it, but Paradise Point Florist, presumably that's the same font you would see on their storefront. Other things that I think could work well in terms of this kind of content. And again, please share ideas with the group in the chat, and I'll sort of call out the ideas as they come in. But other things that could work well, if you think of the context that people are probably often seeing you, it's outside of your business, your storefront, right? If I think about, for me, I may drive or walk by florist shops all the time. So if you start to build awareness of your location, that could be helpful, right? So it could be shots. Again, you don't just want to post your building and be like, hey, we're here, everyone. It could be, hey, if you're looking for something last minute, don't forget to stop by. But by showing your storefront, you're building awareness for your specific location and your specific store. If there's elements of your brand built into it, so it could be a bouquet, but ideally your branding is maybe behind it or around it. When I did a workshop with attorneys and I told them, look, you guys got to get your logo and stuff. And they said, well, how are we supposed to do that? And I said to them, well, put your logo on the back of the laptops when you have an attorney doing a webinar. So they would sit with their computer in front of them. I'm like, get a little logoized thing for the backdrop. Another thing that can work great, branded coffee cups. This is actually just a coffee cup with my sticker put on it because I'm too cheap to buy proper printed goods. Well, actually, these were properly printed and the logo just like rubbed off right away. So what you want to think about though, with brand awareness, a lot of the times we say we're doing stuff for brand awareness, but then when you look at the content, your brand isn't there. So really think about, okay, how do I integrate my store name, my location, all of these types of things into these types of posts so that I'm actually building more awareness for my brand? And you may have to be creative. Again, in your industry, there's not a ton of great examples of this. So this is also like white space where you can do a really good job of finding sort of relevant context to post great photos with your branding. But a lot of the times people will say, well, does my brand need to be in the image because it's posted by me? My logo shows up there. That's a good point. Eye tracking studies on social media show that people, their first frame of reference and the last for many people is just that visual. They only look at the visual. So eye tracking studies show the image is the first thing they look at. Then they look at the text. Then third, they look at the person posting it. So the visual, if your goal really is brand awareness, the visual showcasing your brand is absolutely vital to achieve that objective. And again, I would really think about storefront and start thinking of sort of creative ways to use this stuff, because that's what's going to help is when you can show your creativity. Andrea posted something, which is a good idea. I post pictures of our outside reader board often. So I assume it's one of those boards. And, you know, I bet you if you did a Google search, you can find like clever things that florists write on those as well. I'm not clever enough in that way, but you know, like for alcohol, like a bar, it'll say like the soup of the day is whiskey, right? I'm sure there's like florist examples of this kind of stuff that you can consider. And that's also naturally shareable. People might take pictures, but ideally that board has your logo on it. And it's also then giving some context. And then even maybe if you have bouquets outside, let's say, when you take that picture, if you could fit it in, you could put that board in the shot maybe, so then your logo is in it as well. So you don't want to over logoize everything. Like I actually think just putting your logo on top of photos is the worst way to do it. And studies show that as well. If you can naturally integrate your brand identity into what you're doing, that will make a very big difference. And so if you think about, you know, your brand could be your logo, but it also could be your colors that you're using, or maybe you have a specific font, anything where somebody would look at it and know it's you and not the people down the street. That's what you want to think about for really proper attract content, because you don't want to just be selling I mean, you do want to sell flowers. That's literally what you sell, right? But your goal of marketing isn't to market flowers. It's to market your place to buy them. And so we have a good question from Costa. How do I put my logo on an Instagram post? There's many, many ways that you can do this. My favorite tool for all things images is to use Canva. Canva basically it's pretty cheap. I think it starts at like $10 a month, starts and ends at $10 a month. It's really not expensive, but it's basically like photo editing for people who don't know anything technical. So you can create images like this one here where it says like delivering your emotions to perfection, Paradise Point Florist, that you could make in Canva. Images and words, images with your logo on top, you could easily do that there. What I would suggest though is the best case scenario would be to look for logoized things that you can put into the picture when you take it. So you see, like now I have this logoized backdrop, right? So I don't need to overbrand myself anymore. But before, I would wear a Bootcamp Digital t-shirt every time I did a webinar. I would make sure I'm drinking out of a Bootcamp Digital coffee cup. So if I just put my logo photoshopped onto this, it's a little distracting. It also can seem kind of commercially and distract you. If I throw my logo in natural ways, it helps to make it look a little bit better, right? And so Dalton has a good question. If somebody's on your Instagram or Facebook page, they're already aware of who we are, right? Sort of. The thing to keep, so yes, in some way, but the thing to keep in mind is that when I see most of your content, if you look at where your content views happen, they happen in the news feed. So what essentially that means is that I'm in the news feed looking through posts from my friends and everything else, and that's where your content is coming to me. So sure, if I went to your Facebook page, then I really would know, but that's not where your views are happening. They happen in the news feed. And even though, yes, they're posted by you, it still doesn't, most people's eyes don't go back up to that to see who posted something unless they're very interested in it. So yes, in theory, that is true, but in reality, in the news feed, they don't necessarily know who it's coming from. And think about how many posts you see from how many people. If there's nothing distinctive in your image, people will not naturally associate it with you. Now, something to keep in mind, if you're kind of like, I don't want to overbrand everything, I am certainly not saying overbrand everything or slap your logo on everything. Here's what I want you to remember. We are talking about one of 5 types of content you're posting, right? So I'm not saying every beautiful picture, like these beautiful flower pictures, I'm not saying take every beautiful flower picture and logoize the heck out of it. No, that's not really a good balance either. What I am saying is when you're posting content with the purpose of awareness, if your business is not present, you are not building awareness for your business, right? Janet, I love your suggestion that they have a step and repeat, which is a great investment. So a step and repeat is like this. It's a branded backdrop, and these are relatively inexpensive to order online. And then you can find ways to incorporate it. But I love, as you can see, I'm showing you all my branded stuff that I have flying around. I love branded stuff, maybe a little too much. But what I like about branded stuff is that without being so overt about it, you can get your brand into a lot of things. So a branded step and repeat is a good idea. If you have branded t-shirts, those work really well. Even a branded coffee cup that you can kind of just throw in, as you think of your photography and your shareable and talkable moments, really think about how could I do this naturally, as well as, how could I Photoshop this in if needed. So again, do not take away everything needs to have your logo on it. If your goal of your content is awareness, that's what you need to ask yourself. Am I building awareness for flowers, or am I building awareness for myself? And that's what you really want to sort of think about. Jennifer is saying she doesn't understand a step and repeat. Yeah, a step and repeat is like literally this wall behind me. So this is not a virtual Zoom background. This is a physical thing pinned to my wall. Basically, it's your logo. Repeat. It's called a step and repeat because it steps, 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 and repeats, repeats, repeats. It's like what they make in Hollywood movies where people go and stand in front of them. And typically you have it on like a frame. Like it's like literally if outside of a red carpet thing where all the celebrities pose, it's basically you create something like that you have on a frame, and then you can take various photos or videos or things like that in front of your logoized background. And they're not too expensive. I would say like you're talking a couple $100 maybe for something like this, depending on where you shop. The only tip I will give you, if you do a step and repeat or logoized different pop-ups and stuff, I used to use vinyl, but it's really shiny if you use vinyl and you get really horrid reflections. This is a fabric. And so like I have a light here, you can see it on my forehead sadly, but you don't see the light reflecting off of this because it's not vinyl. So just a pro tip there. But yeah, these are all great ideas in terms of sort of natural ways to start building your brand into things so that you're really focusing on what it is you do specifically. So the next step down the funnel is nurture. Nurture is really about people thinking that you're the best at something. In traditional marketing, we would call this brand equity. And the idea here is like, okay, I kind of know who you are. Maybe I've walked by your shop a bunch of times. Maybe I follow you because 4 years ago I got something for my mom and you asked me in the store to follow you on Instagram. Equity is where now I start to think, man, you are really good at X, Y, and Z. Man, you have great X. This is where you're kind of warming people up to get them to buy. So buy content, which is what we'll talk about next, conversion focused stuff usually is like, hey, get this for Mother's Day, or ooh, new special back to school packets. Nurture is not that aggressive selling, but it could be things like floral care tips, right? How to keep your bouquet alive as long as possible. It could be good nurture content, could be things that are like this video shows a florist going to a huge flower market to pick out all the best stuff for some purpose. I don't know what, but it could be that. It could be, who was it that suggested this earlier? I'm going back up to see who it was. Dalton had said, photos with the bride. So photos with the bride with her bouquet showing we make beautiful wedding bouquets, right? That's where nurture content comes into play. I would say this is the most common type of content that I see broadly when I look at florist accounts. Is that a lot of the times you're seeing stuff that's kind of in this category. Look at how beautiful our flowers are. Look at how great we can do an event. How to do this, tips, that kind of stuff. That's all great for nurturing because here you want people to think you're the best at what you do. Now, if you see this one photo sort of in the middle where it says flowers, if you have like a consistent font that you use to build your brand equity, maybe it's the same font that's on your storefront, using that in your images is a nice way to sort of integrate your brand without your logo. And then I see a comment from Italo. Many of our posts have the team in the image and you're always wearing your branded t-shirt. So the logo's in the post in a soft way, but consistently. Perfect. That's the exact kind of stuff you want to do. And even if you don't want maybe t-shirts, like you could have a branded apron or something, right? So I think it doesn't always have to be the thing with your brand and your logo. It doesn't have to be so in your face and overt. Sometimes I like that you said the logo's in a soft way. I call it like natural or in context, but yeah, it's soft. It's not so aggressive like logo, because it does distract from whatever your other message is. If everything is so over logoized, it can feel real commercial, right? So when it comes to nurture content, this is where you want to really show what are you best at? Why are people going to you versus someone else? And you could have a few different ideas here. You could have some things that are how to, you could have some pictures of flowers. Something I would try to think about, and this is an idea that maybe also depends where you're at in your broader marketing, but maybe give some consideration to what does make you different than other people, and can you focus your content more around that? So you may have different audiences, right? You may be doing bridal flowers, event flowers, and then, just off the shelf bouquets or special event bouquets. So you could show all of those things, but you can also think about, even within those contexts, what is it that really makes you different? Why does somebody pick you over somebody else? And I see we have someone off of mute. Do you have, I can't see who it is. I can just hear noise. If you have a question, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I will just disregard. Okay, maybe the person is back on mute. So yeah, definitely here I would think about, nurture content is probably where most of your content is right now. But I would step yourself back a little too and ask yourself, is there something that does really make us different or unique that we would want to center this around? And you may not be there. Again, to me, the thing to keep in mind with marketing is it's a journey. And if you're at the beginning of the journey and this is feeling a little intimidating to you, that's okay. Find 1, 2, 3 small steps you can take. If you're in the middle or more advanced, you may be saying, oh, this is true. We're nurturing, but we need to get more focused. So really try and take away what's right for you based on where you're at in your own journey. But with nurture content, and if any of you guys you guys all have great ideas. So if anyone has ideas for nurture content, please throw it into the chat. I would say this is what we see a ton of. And so Italo again has a good comment. It's all about the people. You can get flowers anywhere. The reason a customer comes to us is because of who we are. We tell our story, what is unique, and that's why your customers are buying. And I think that's really true. And, if to me, again, it's like, why do I go to a florist versus a grocery store? I don't know if that's how you would frame your business. That's how I think of the decision. But well, maybe I walk in and I say, oh, I'd really love something that's going to stay alive for more than a week. What do you recommend? And they're going to help me choose something. Or I say, oh, I'm planning this type of dinner. What would be a good fit? Or I'm actually based in Holland. I'm in the home of tulips, the Netherlands. And it could be, oh, these tulips came right from Holland. I don't know if that's true, if they send them all the way to America, but it could be, oh, these came from Holland and here's what makes them special. But that's the kind of stuff that really does get someone excited and interested in you. So really think about nurturing from that context of what is it that specifically is that value you provide? And if this is difficult for you, so for a lot of business owners, this can be really hard. Again, everyone's in different spots of their journey. But if you have some regular customers that you know somewhat well, you can actually literally ask them, why do you come here? What is it that makes you come here and not somewhere else? And see what they say, because it might surprise you and you might get some really great insights there. So I always think, asking people, why do you come to us versus someone else? And maybe it's like, well, I walked by it on my way home every day and I finally stopped in, and Susan was so friendly. I just came every week after that. Then you kind of know, okay, it's the friendliness, or I got a personal recommendation from somebody. But that's going to help you think about the story and how you tell the story of what you're doing. So I love that suggestion of sort of storytelling with some of this nurture content, because this is where you really want to think about what makes us stand out and why is somebody coming here. And I think it's a combination of these kinds of content that we talked about here. So the next type of content, again, we're working our way down this funnel. The next one is convert or conversion. This is where we're thinking about, how do we get someone through the doors? How do we get them to stop and actually buy from us? What's important to keep in mind is that the first two do that over time, right? This is now somebody is warmed up and you're hitting them with something really specific that drives them to take action. So if you think about this in the context of TV advertising, right? A lot of TV advertising is just for awareness. So if you think of a car, right? If you look at the car ads coming from the car manufacturers, it's like, oh, look at the new Ford, whatever. It looks so sexy because of this and that, right? That's probably not awareness because you probably know about that car. That's probably nurture, right? They want you to latch onto a few features. When you look at the ads from local dealerships, it's come in now and test drive. That's a conversion ad, right? They're not going to sell you a car over a TV ad, but their goal, get you in the door, right? And so when we think about conversion content, this is like conversion is buying. It's a fancy marketing word for buying. we want to think about how do we get them to actually act now? And that's where we want to think a little bit about things like coupon or direct response. And so you always want to keep in mind that buying is a journey, right? So if all of your content is, ooh, we have this bouquet, order it now. We have this, order it now, order, 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 you're missing a lot of opportunities. And I see a lot of you, Carla has also said, storytelling is a really good way to connect with your audience. Yeah, absolutely. And what you want to do is storytell enough so that when it's time to convert, they're like ready to go. And I always think of this stuff as like you're just tappity tapping, pushing someone over the edge that they're like teetering on anyways. And you're probably used to doing this maybe in your shop as well, right? Where there's something you want to try and sell. So you put it in the front, or you put a special offer on it, or you find a way to feature it. That's what you want to do when it comes to conversion. And so any ideas you have about conversion content, feel free to share it in the chat, because again, it's so nice to learn from other people with sort of specific experience in this. When we think about conversion content, what we're really thinking about here is, what is it that makes somebody buy from us? And I don't know, do you guys see these like stripes or like lines over my presentation, or is that only on my screen? I think somebody drew on the screen somehow, so I can't remove it. So just disregard. But yeah, sorry. So so Janet has a good idea. You can target new customers by posting recycle your vases here. So you may not have normal walk-in traffic, but that's a really great idea, because I think a lot of us have too many vases that, I don't know if you're supposed to say vases or vases, but probably, I'm Canadian, so I probably don't pronounce it the same as Americans, but probably everyone has too many of those lying around. So that's a great idea. Get someone in the store, and then you have the opportunity to sell to them. So you certainly can look at the opportunity to, there we go. I found the eraser tool, because those lines were going to drive me crazy. But you certainly can look at conversion as something like that. It doesn't have to be so aggressive. Well, not that it's aggressive, but it doesn't have to be so direct as buy, recycle your vases. It gets someone in the store, and then they're going to see something beautiful. They feel like they're doing a good deed, and they are less waste in the world. So that's a really, really great idea, Janet. Thank you for sharing. We want to think here about, I would say with conversion or sales focused content, we want to take it one step above just, hey, here's some flowers, come and buy them. Try to think about relevant context and something that's interesting. Oh, and Italo is also from Canada, so I'm glad I'm not alone. He sent it privately. So when we think about conversion content, also think about how to add context when you're selling, right? So one of the things to step back and think about is like, okay, it's just not buy flowers, look at these flowers, buy these flowers, look at these flowers, buy these flowers. Think of it as like, what makes them unique? What is, we have already talked about storytelling. How do you tell a story around it? How do you create a product even that's a little bit more interesting and linked to something? So you can see the example I have here of the car thing is on Facebook, and Facebook, actually, I'll show you this next week, but Facebook has a feature where you can tag products and send people directly to the website. So from here, you see it's like a pickup truck, and it has the American flag in the back. I am fairly certain it was posted at the end of May, so I would assume it's a Memorial Day bouquet. And it's just a little more interesting and uniquely created than maybe the typical thing that I would see on my news feed. That's going to get me more interested and thinking about it. Because for me, I wouldn't have thought of Memorial Day as a flower opportunity for my home. But now you're showing me something cute, giving me that inspiration and idea. So when you think about conversion content, really try to spend some time thinking about what is it that is as unique as possible. And that's what's really going to stand out in your feed. So I would, again, even as you think of Mother's Day, I assume that's probably got to be one of the biggest flower buying days of the year. You all would know better than me. But if you can take it a step beyond Mother's Day flowers and come up with things that are really unique, really interesting, that's going to help you. And something you can consider doing as you look for inspiration is, follow other people that you admire. It could be someone in Australia. It could be, there's some Canadians here. It could be someone in Canada. I see Connie's also Canadian. So I'm from Toronto, by the way. But it could be anyone from anywhere. What you want to start doing also is, like I said, the steps to building this really starts with listening, but we didn't really get into that. We're starting with strategy. But look at some brands that are aspirational to you and start banking ideas. So when Mother's Day comes around, you're like, this will be really cool for people. I think they'll be into this. And that helps take you outside of maybe your normal box of what you're thinking about. But really think about beyond just, hey, we have this bouquet, why not pick it up? Really, the more you can think about the interestingness, the more likely you are to get someone to take action based on that specific ad. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, I did a webinar with FTD, and someone in the chat had said that, because obviously things were where most of the people were, this was, a little over a year ago, hard to believe. At the time, a lot of people couldn't have their storefronts open. And so one of the people in the chat had shared that they actually were grouping flowers with like board games for like a fun night in, right? I've not seen something like that before. That's an interesting way where it's like, hey, you could send that to a friend, say, hey, I'm thinking of you, and you're sending them a game in addition, right? What it does, like that idea came from necessity to expand revenue. But what it does is it just makes it a little more interesting and a little more relevant to the specific moment, right? Because the moment in that case was the pandemic, everyone's stuck at home, so you're sending someone a game. So as you think about your content, try to think as much as possible from a conversion standpoint about what is it that actually is making this product unique? What is interesting? What is the story behind it? And that will really help that type of content to do well. And so again, what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to think about the different types of content. And then at the end, we're going to build a plan that incorporates all of these different types of content into it. So it doesn't mean everything needs to be selling. Again, we're looking at a mix of different content types. So Carla is saying, this is a great idea. Connect to emotions as well. So for Mother's Day, when you get an order, make an extra one for the nursing home, send to somewhere where you connect beyond normal and going that extra mile, and talk about it on your page. Yeah, that's a fabulous idea. So really making it that sort of talkable, unexpected, interesting moment. I love that idea. And so as you think about this, I think the main thing to consider with your conversion content is really to amp up the interestingness beyond flowers buy them, and really try to think about what is the story, what's the interestingness, why would someone buy these specifically, right? Because if the whole idea is it's Mother's Day, buy flowers, I can buy those anywhere, quite literally. So really, the more you can think about, even with conversion, that unique spin or something that makes you stand out, that's going to help to take your content even further. And on social media, it makes it much more interesting and much more talkable. So the next one is retain and grow. Here's where we want to think about, how do we get more out of our existing customers? And FedEx is awesome at this. I don't know if any of you use FedEx, but like they started off just doing shipping. Now, if you're on their mailing list, they're like, hey, do you have a business? We can make your business cards. They can probably do these things. They can do like anything you ever want done for your business by the emails that I get from them. And what they're really thinking about is that, look, they have this small business audience walking in their doors. How do they make more from them? Whether it's in that one visit or by inspiring follow-up visits. And one of the things that they say in marketing is that it's cheaper to get a current customer to buy more or to buy more often or to buy something else than it is to attract a new one through your doors. Yet, when we look at how we think about marketing, oftentimes we think more about new. So really thinking about retaining and growing your customer base is about coming up with ideas that gets your customers to come back again and again. That recycling your vases, I love that for this type of strategy as well, where you can tell your customers, hey, let's all help the environment together. And it gets them in the store an extra time. Where you have an opportunity, it also builds your brand positioning. So that's a super, super nice idea. Here, what we're thinking about really is how are we upselling or cross-selling things to really get people to buy more or different things than they normally would. So it could be new product listings. It could be different types of things that they maybe wouldn't normally think about. It could be, maybe encouraging a subscription, or, hey, every Friday, we have this discount to get people in on Fridays to build it into their routine to stop in on their way home from work, maybe. I know that's not really a social media idea, but you would then promote it on social media. The other thing I would say to ask yourself is, one of the things that you can do really well on social media, especially with ads, is re-reach people who've already done business with you. So like if you have an email list of your customers, you could send them all an ad on Facebook, which is a much more targeted and effective approach than a lot of the other things you might be doing. So really thinking about, if you get your customers following you on social media, and we're going to talk more about the little tricks and tactics you can use with this stuff. But if you get your customers connected to you on social, or they sign up for your emails or something like that, then you can really ask yourself, how do I grow them from whatever your average customer is stopping into? How do I get that happening more often? And what are some of the ways that I can position the message or things that I can share or show them that is more likely to drive them to do that? Maybe, I showed this picture of a plant, right? Maybe it's about focusing on plants as a different purchase moment. Hey, did you know plants live forever and they make better oxygen in your house or something? I don't know. Something like that is true, right? Plants like breathe out air. I don't think I did so well in science, but these kind of different messages can certainly help to get your existing customers to purchase more. So it's about having a deliberate strategy, and any ideas you have that have worked for you about sort of growing your content in this area, please feel free to share in the chat so we can all kind of get inspired and learn from each other. But a lot of your customers are probably not buying as often as they could or as often as they should. I live in Holland right now, which I think must be the flower capital of the world. And what's interesting to me is that almost everyone here, there's a market on Tuesday in the town I live in, and almost everyone buys flowers every Tuesday. That's just their routine. They go and buy fresh flowers for their house every Tuesday because Tuesday is market day. And so if you can inspire, look at ways to inspire this thinking or this behavior, or to start getting people into that habit, can be a nice way to use social media. Even incentives, right? Is there a way to incentivize them? Well, after you come here 8 times, the 9th time you get a bonus or something like that. So really thinking about how you can get your existing customers buying more and building your content specifically for that purpose is our 4th content bucket. Our 5th content bucket is probably one of my favorites, which is advocacy. This is my favorite because almost every business will say, I get a lot of customers from word of mouth. And when you say, what do you do to inspire it? The answer is always not much. So if you start thinking about everything you do as, how do I make this talkable and shareable? That's how you can get results. Because here's the difference between getting people talking and not. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes it's about just like giving people this tiny push they need. So we do a free workshop every month. And one of the things we had noticed after we did a few is some people would post about it on social media, but it was like maybe at most 5% of attendees. So every time we did it, we'd see like 3 to 5 posts on social media. But then we were looking at our marketing funnel and said, we get all these people coming in. Why not use it as an opportunity to get them talking? And so we do a thing where if you tag us, you can get a free book. And what's interesting is with the exact same product, the exact same webinar, we went from under 5% sharing to 20 to 50% sharing a post from the webinar. And all we did differently was we asked and we incentivized. And you don't necessarily have to incentivize even. Sometimes a genuine ask goes a much longer way. We have a strategy where we ask for reviews for our business. And someone on my team said, let's test giving out a $5 gift card. So write a review, we'll give you $5. It's not like so much recommended. But I said, fine, let's try it. Here's what will probably surprise you. We get a better response from a genuine personal ask. Hey, we're a small business. It would mean the world if you would take a second and leave a review. That performs at least 10 times better than $5 at Starbucks. Believe it or not. So you don't have to incentivize word of mouth. You need to suggest it, and you need to suggest it at the right time when there is a talkable moment. So as you think of some of the different businesses or the different opportunities you have with your customers, start thinking about when are there opportunities for this type of advocacy content. So I love this picture you see sort of in the bottom of this girl. It says, so the company, I can't see the name because I made the picture so small, but the company is Fleur something. And the box says, you've been fleured, which is cute, right? Like fleur as in flower in French, F-L-E-U-R. So it's like you've been fleured. And the box is purple, presumably the same as their brand colors, I would hope. And then you can't see it, but sort of right by where the stuff is, it has an Instagram image and their hashtag for Instagram. So what they're doing is, one, they have beautiful packaging, which anything that's a little unexpected helps. So like Carla's suggestion of bringing one to a nursing home, it's about doing something unexpected that gets someone talking, right? That's kind of the big idea here. And so this is an unexpected presentation of the product combined with a quick request indirectly, but it just has the Instagram icon and the username. You could add the hashtag right in that box that inspires social sharing. So think about where can you sort of request, even just indirectly by putting the Instagram icon and your brand name, where can you get people sharing your content? I'm not even joking. I bought a garbage can, and it had a tag in it that was like, share this on Instagram. Now, I don't know what insane people are going to share a garbage can they bought on Instagram. Like, it was not this like extraordinary garbage can, but I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are doing it and they have nothing that anyone wants to be sharing. So you have no excuse. But really think about how you can get these talkable moments out of what you're doing. If you ever watched, so this is like a bizarrely, this is going to all make sense, I promise you. It might sound like a bizarre example, but there's this show on Netflix where I think it's called Home Away, maybe, where they go to people who are trying to start Airbnbs. And they help them, they like renovate the house and help them market themselves and set the pricing. And so they help people to like set up their home for an Airbnb. And one of the things they do in all of them is they create Instagrammable moments within the experience that they build. And so Connie is saying, make the wall, right? The step and repeat wall, I assume. I'm trying to scroll back to see if you were the one who suggested and was talking about the wall. Um, but yeah, yes, you are. So like this makes a talkable experience. So I go in, I'm all excited. I have my flowers and you're like, hey, Krista, can I quickly take your picture and post it on our Instagram? Yes, especially if I look great coming home from work, or especially if I'm the great husband buying these for my wife and you're going to make me look good. Why would I say no to that? So this can create an Instagrammable moment, a whiteboard with something clever on it, and your hashtag and the Instagram logo. That can create a talkable moment. You really want to start thinking in the context of where can I create these talkable moments within what's happening in the experiences that I'm giving. And it could be by going above and beyond, but it can be through all sorts of different things. The key is doing things that get people talking. One of these examples here is you see the picture of a pet, somebody who subscribed to chewy.com, which is a site that I think sells pet stuff. I assume a subscription site. She canceled her subscription because her cat died, and they sent her flowers and a card. Like, how sweet is that? A friend of mine worked at a company called QuickBooks. It's like online account, not QuickBooks, everyone knows that, FreshBooks, the competitor of QuickBooks. He worked at FreshBooks. So Fresh is all, even though it's accounting, Fresh, they used actually a leaf in their logo. And at one point, one of their followers had said, like, she got dumped by her boyfriend, and they just sent her flowers the next day. And it's funny because, like, this accounting software sent their customer flowers, but it's a real talkable moment, right? And I'm not saying you need to go and start sending people free stuff all the time. Absolutely not. It's about finding the talkability in what you're already doing. And a good way to do it is look at what people are already talking about it and then talking about and amplify it. So what do you see people talking about here and there and amplify it? Like the way we got the idea to ask people to share in our webinar is we saw a very small handful of people were doing it already. And then we're like, what if we amplify it? What if we encourage that? Could it get even bigger? So what I would suggest for advocacy is look at where are your customers already taking a picture, or where are they open to taking a picture, and get them talking about it. Because ideally what you want to do isn't necessarily share that content on your own account. You want me to share it on mine and to tag you. Right? So if you have a step and repeat, if you have this guy in your store and I come in to buy flowers and you say, hey, can I take a picture? Great. Yes. Take one with your phone and then say, can I take one on your phone? And I would love it if you would tag us, right? You could even make it fun, like, oh, pose or something, right? But make it fun. And then ask me to tag you when I post it. And now all of my friends are seeing your brand, which is really the big idea, is to get not just you sharing stuff that tags your customers, but inspire and encourage your customers to share by doing things that are talkable and giving them that little hint to tag you. And I know I talked a lot about Instagram, but it depends on the age of your audience, right? Instagram is typically going to be under 40. If your audience is over 40, Facebook is where they're going to be. So, think about the different moments and encourage them to tag you in those moments. So then you're using them as basically your marketing amplifier, right? So now they're basically going to build all of this brand awareness for you. So as we put it all together, what you want to think about is that buying is a process, right? It happens over time. And what you want to start to get deliberate about is thinking strategically about why you're posting different things, and then link the content you post back to that as deliberately as possible. So instead of lots of beautiful flowers, we want to think about, is this beautiful flower supposed to get someone to buy? Is it supposed to raise brand awareness? Is it for them to think that we're the best at weddings? What is it that we're trying to do? And this lens is going to give you a renewed focus to the way that you think about your content. So when we talk about strategy, this is what we really mean. It's about linking your ideas back to these sort of strategic frameworks that you're building around. Then you want to think about, okay, I know my strategies, I know what I'm trying to do. Then you want to think about identifying your target audience. Here you want to think as specifically as possible about who is it that you really are solving a problem for. So who is it that you actually solve a problem for? Who is your ideal customer? So some of your target audiences could be obvious, right? Maybe you're doing weddings, maybe you're doing events. Those are probably pretty defined and focused for you. But one of the things to think about as well is I like to always use the example of Tide laundry detergent because I used to work on that brand. So if you think about it, tons of people buy Tide laundry detergent. It has like 50% market share, right? Lots of people buy it. If you see a commercial for Tide laundry detergent, who are they targeting? They're targeting moms with a minivan and a dog and 2 kids. Every Tide commercial, right? It doesn't mean that other people don't buy it. It means it really uniquely solves a problem because Tide is the best cleaning detergent. Like that's the brand equity they've built. And who has the biggest problem with dirty clothes? People with children. I have 2 toddlers, and I would have blown my mind if you had told me 5 years ago how messy these humans can be. So the reason Tide targets moms is because it solves a unique problem for them, right? And so, as you think about your target audience, the sort of tip I'll give you is try to think beyond the high level of, okay, people who buy flowers, sure, but what does maybe 60% of that look like, right? Who is the biggest group? And maybe focus on them. Because even though you may say, okay, well, on Mother's Day, actually, it's mostly men buying flowers. Great. Who do you think tells them where to go? Probably. Um, maybe that's a little stereotyping, so that could not be accurate. But what you want to be thinking about is who really is your audience for which things, and try to get as focused as possible, because the more focused you are, the better that you will be able to do. And Jesselyn, I see your question. I'm going to hold it to the end if that's okay, because it's a great question, but a little bit off where I'm going right now. And again, feel free to type any questions in, and I promise I'll answer them all, even if it's something we'll talk about later. So strategy is why are we doing it? And then the implementation is where, how, and when. So for strategy, you have the template in the action planner. Hopefully you've written down ideas for each stage. What you want to be able to do whenever you do anything, not just on social media for that matter, but ask yourself, which of these stages am I really trying to hit? Why am I doing it? And every post even should have one clear purpose. Then we get to the implementation, which is where, how, when, and all of that kind of stuff. So what we want to do is sort of switch up the way we implement on social media from a lot of content that maybe focuses on flowers to focused content that's achieving an objective and feels unique to our brand or our business. And Carla, you said it well, which is finding your niche is important. That's going to be your why a little bit. So if you've ever heard of Simon Sinek, he's this business guy. He did a TED Talk like ages ago, maybe 8-9 years ago, about finding your why. And his whole point is that there's what you do is sell flowers, how you do it, which is, well, we make the biggest and most outrageous bouquets, or, we have quick and easy stuff for any occasion. That's how you do it. But what he argues is that the main reason people will buy from you is why you do it. And so finding your why and really getting as focused as possible will certainly make your content more focused and more unique to you. And that's what we really want to do, is start thinking about how do we focus our content. So then we get into content. So we've talked about strategy. Now we have what do we say and how do you say it? So what you say is, okay, we have even before you get to what you say, your strategy is we're promoting Mother's Day. What you say is, oh, we have this over the top bouquet of 5,000 flowers. This is probably not something you would do, but how we're doing it is, we have this specific product we're going to focus on. But then how you say it is all these little tips and tricks to bring it together. So what we want to focus on a little bit now is this, what do you say? So what does your content strategy look like? So I talked about these 5 buckets, and what you want to start to do is build a more balanced strategy. Ideally, for most businesses, you do want to be hitting on different buckets throughout your content. And one of the things you'll hear a lot of in social media is when it comes to content strategy, you'll sometimes hear it as 80-20. We do 20-60-20. It's all the same idea, which is some stuff is going to be very promotional. Some stuff is going to be really socially interesting to people, but maybe doesn't directly sell. Most of your stuff you want to be interesting and also promote you, right? So you could have a super sunny yellow bouquet and say, there's some stat I know that links flowers to improving mood. I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody does, but I know there's stats around this kind of stuff, right? That flowers are shown to make people feel happier or something along these lines. So I might post, that statistic, according to a study by so-and-so, flowers make you feel 50% happier. Why not add some sunshine to your life today, right? That's going to be in that 60% bucket. It's interesting. So rather than just saying flowers, 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 I'm making them a little more interesting by linking it to your mood, and I've chosen an appropriate floral arrangement. And that's in that 60%. So some of your stuff may be more promotional. Some of your stuff may be helpful, and you might say, okay, it's not exactly marketing us, but it still feels good. You want most of your content to sort of be in that sweet spot in the middle of your content. So what you always want to be thinking about is 2 things. We talked all about marketing strategy in this, right? Because that's what we're focusing on, is building content that maps to our strategy. When it comes to executing your content, what you want to really be thinking about is, how am I adding? Okay, so from a strategic standpoint, I need to promote something for Mother's Day. So I know my need as a business, but how do I then also make it valuable, interesting, emotional, fill in the blank, something relevant to my audience? And that's how we get into this 60% zone in the middle. So once it comes to putting your actual content together, we focused all on the internal side, right? The business side of how do we make our content strategic? But now what we want to do is say, well, we want to make it both strategic to us and valuable or interesting to our audience, because every single social network works on an algorithm, and all of the algorithms come down to the same stuff. If you post stuff people like, more people will see your stuff. That's simple. So if you post stuff that people are interested in, then that gives you more visibility on the platform as well. So we need to switch our thinking and think in terms of value to the audience as well as us to sort of get into this sweet spot. So here's how we go about building a specific plan. And we call this creating content buckets. But essentially, what you want to do is be able to look at the different topics we covered, right? So we talked about the 5 marketing strategies. And you may have some content that's even just, people love. Maybe it doesn't fit in one of those buckets. That's okay too. What you want to do is, you've done a lot of brainstorming together, and a lot of you were generous enough to share ideas with us. Take that and start building out sort of content topics or buckets. So I might start with my marketing channels, and then what are the different things within each one that I can post about? So I could have one bucket that's special occasion, one bucket that is tips for, flowers in your house. I could have one bucket all about bridal stuff, but even within bridal, I might want to break that down, right? To say, look at that marketing funnel again and say, well, how do I think about bridal at these different stages versus all nurture? Because I think a lot of the content I see for florists falls in that nurture bucket. It's look at my beautiful flowers, right? Which I get. Of course, you need to post that sometimes, but we want to have more diversity up and down the funnel, right? So what we want to do then is think about some of the different buckets and keep this list handy, because one of the biggest challenges we all have is posting stuff, posting enough stuff, thinking about what we want to say. And so if you have this handy and you have these buckets, now you have your kind of go-to plan. So let's say you have 5 different buckets. Okay, these are the general ideas I'm going to post about. Then, if you're posting 5 times a week, maybe it's so simple where it's one thing from each bucket. Monday is tip day, Tuesday is this, etc. So we want to really start focusing on mapping out those buckets. Next week, we're going to focus on how do we optimize for every channel. So what are the best practices for Instagram versus Facebook? And then how do we get better and better at doing this stuff? And that's really going to be what our focus is next week. So what your buckets could look like is, okay, so A, I'm going to focus on branded content, but then you want to have a big idea list underneath all of these things. Maybe N, nurturing, I'm going to focus on, really showing my skill. Maybe I'm going to focus on, specific flowers linked to seasons. Then C, I have promotions. Retain and grow new products, unexpected products. And then word of mouth, how do I build that in everywhere? But what you basically want to do, and I built this slide in advance. We have much better ideas now that you all have shared. So what you want to do is start thinking about sort of all of these stages and then map out your buckets. And that way, you'll have a bucket, so promotions, and maybe I have 4 or 5 ideas within promotions. Branded content, maybe one is, oh, I got an award at the Chamber of Commerce. One of them is the storefront. So what you'll want to think about is these different sort of buckets that you have, and then what content falls under them. And that's kind of the first step of your content strategy. So if you think of where we are right now in terms of our overall plan, we started really focusing on strategy, target audience, and content. Next week, we're going to focus on tools and implementation. So I know we had a question come in already, and some of you may have additional questions. So if you have any questions, I saved some time to answer them. So feel free to type your questions in. I'll start with the question that Jesselyn asked earlier. If we have multiple locations with different names, all under one umbrella company, is it more beneficial to have an online presence for each shop or one presence that encompasses everything? This is a really good question. These things are really tricky to answer because in general, the more accounts you create, the more upkeep you have. So if I have 5 Facebook accounts, now I need 5 executions versus 1. What I always think when these types of questions come up is put on a consumer first lens and ask yourself how the consumer or your customer would perceive this. So if I'm trying to think of an example, but if the customer would I used to work at Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble makes all these brands you don't even think about. Tide laundry detergent, Olay, Crest, Pampers, all these things. If I did my marketing to P&G and said, oh, follow P&G, most people wouldn't think of that because they think Tide, Olay, Crest, right? So if your customers think of it as if the store names are all unique and your customers think of it, oh, I'm going to the flower shop on the corner, if that's what it's called, not Master Flower Brand, then I would focus on the brands that people know, because when they're tagging you on social, they're going to automatically go to that. If they're looking you up on social, they will automatically go to that. So use the brand that people know as your main brand. That's always the best way to do it. If I think in Cincinnati, where I used to live, there's a restaurant group that owns many restaurants. Some people know, oh, these are all Thunderdome restaurants, but most people are like, oh, I'm going to the Eagle or whatever. So that's what I would think about. Anna, did you have your hand up to ask a question? Yeah, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
We're a small home base. We do not do like the storefront. How can we get our name out there more?
Good question. And if any of you have ideas, feel free to share as well. But I would look at, and you may not want to invest in like this giant thing that's sitting on my wall, right? But I would look at how could you create some branded things that you can use in context. Like this coffee cup, it's actually just stickers on a coffee cup. It's not, I didn't pay to get it branded. So so if you don't have a storefront, you're really relying probably on online to build your brand. So I would look at, start with your family and friends and people who already know you. They're always a good sort of starting point, and get them talking. They'll probably want to help you, right? But look for ways to incorporate your brand and shareable moments in everything that you do. And it's often just like these little tiny extra things, or it can, like, honestly, directly and nicely asking people goes a much longer way than stuff we sometimes think of. So if you're a home-based business, like, people know you and like you probably is a big part of why they're coming to you. So I would certainly then think about, like, hey, as you know, we're starting up, it would mean the world to me if you could post this on Instagram. And that would probably work better for you than even, investing in branded stuff. So I would leverage your leverage your personal story, share why you're doing this, what it means to your life, what it means to your family, how giving people flowers brings the joy to you, whatever. I don't know. You probably have a better story that I'm making up, right? But
So woman owned. Women started,
right.
women owned.
So that kind of stuff is perfect. And there's probably a reason you started. And sharing those stories, like, that's why people buy from you, right? There's 1,000 places they can buy flowers, right? I mean, many. Why are they choosing you? It's because probably they know you and they like you. Well, you can even dig deeper. What do they like? Do they like your story? Are the flowers so, like, beautifully put together? Is it your price point? Like, think about the things that are really unique, and I would try and focus on those things. So sort of from a brand building standpoint, really try and think about what makes us different. Why do people come here? And then bring it to life as much as possible. But I really think as a small business, you have the right to just real genuinely ask people, and most people will want to help you because most people are nice. Despite how it might seem on social media. So I like, Tenna has said Vistaprint is a good place. That's where mine came from, is Vistaprint. I think they're one of the better priced options, and they always have coupons. So you can always look for them. Okay, so I have a question that I see coming from Amy. I'm new from across the country and I don't have a large following. What's the first thing I should be focusing on via social media to get customers? So I think this might be a better question after the next session, kind of for the third session or the end of next week when we talk about the channels, because there's a lot that you could do, right? The thing is thinking about what you should do. So I think if you're starting from scratch, you have a really good opportunity to start to smartly build this stuff. Advertising is always a good option if you're not well known, especially, Facebook ads are cost effective and made to help small businesses. But what I would really think about is if you have a storefront where people are walking by every day, leverage that first, right? I always kind of think about marketing in terms of leverage points. What are my leverage points that I could start building off of? Maybe you already have a handful of people walking the door. Start with them. That's a leverage point. I worked at Procter & Gamble for marketing. Then I went and worked for a startup. And I personally knew the first 100 customers' names. And I knew the pictures they would put, like, I knew everything about these people. So, like, leverage your small, right? Really get to know these people and ask them, like, hey, if we could do a subscription service where I brought you something every Friday, what would you think of that? Would that be something that works for you? And I would really start by thinking about what do you have as leverage points? Tenna has a nice suggestion here, connecting with funeral directors. Yeah, that was a moment I hadn't thought of. But that can help get you started and get your name out. Yeah, and I know somebody else had mentioned nursing homes. There's florists. What I think generally works, and somebody mentioned this earlier, is niches, right? Or if you're Canadian, niches. But there's an expression in marketing, they say the riches is in the niches. It's, like, I think a little bit cheesy, but it is a smart idea, which is, look, if you're the best at funeral arrangements, you can go to every funeral director and talk to them. You can, really learn about and nail that one market and become the best at it. If you try and do everything, you kind of end up with a scattered approach. So I think that's another really good suggestion. Funeral directors, nursing homes, weddings, events, like whatever these moments are, find one of them and really start building your reputation around that. I kind of think of it as photographers. If I'm hiring a photographer, I don't want the photographer that does pictures of everything, right? If I'm hiring a photographer to take a picture of my kids, I want the best kid photographer in the world. Or if I'm hiring a photographer for my wedding, who would I pay more for? The photographer who's like, and I also can take pictures of your kids. Do you want business headshots while I'm there? Or the person who's like, look, I'm going to nail your wedding. All I do is take pictures of weddings. I'm more expensive, but it's because this is all I do. And I'm absolutely excellent at it. So niching, I think, is a really, 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 really good idea. So a lot of ideas in terms of amplification. I think also the business strategy is a good one. Italo has asked, do reward points work? Does anyone have thoughts on it? I'd be curious if any of you have tried it. I don't know specifically in your industry, but I would say, look, we're at an interesting point right now. And I think it's Italo, you're in Canada, where if you're in Ontario, which I think you said, things are only just opening up there. And I think they're opening very slowly. That's where my whole family is. So you're at an interesting point where you can rewrite the rules and see what happens. And a lot of people have opinions. I've worked in restaurant marketing and people say, never do coupons, never do coupons. But I can show you 10 people that earn a huge percentage of their business from coupons and it's profitable for them. So I would suggest try it. This is the perfect time. Come up with just a simple, easy way to do it. Maybe you hand out a handful of punch cards and see, are people coming back to get their next stamp? Do they seem to care about this? How's it going? And then you can decide if you expand it. You could just print 10 of them. So one of the things that I would say when it comes to trying new things is start small and then look for opportunities to grow and leverage these more. So we're 2 minutes over time. So I am going to wrap up today. You have my email. You can also ask questions, but I'm going to be here for 2 more weeks. So I would suggest take some time to let this stuff marinate and sink in, and then come back next time with your questions as well. And we'll have time at the end of the next section for you to ask even more questions. At this point, I will wrap up. Thank you for joining me. And I'm going to pass it back over to FTD to sort of close out our session for today.
Wow, thanks for an amazing first session, Krista. I don't know about all of you guys, but I can hardly wait for next week. We just want to thank everyone for taking 90 minutes out of your day to spend it with us. And I just want to let you know the recording of today's session will be sent to you later this week. So there's a lot of information there to go through again. And if you haven't registered for session 2 and 3 yet, do it now before you forget, because it'll be a week before you know it, and you definitely don't want to miss out. So we just hope we will see everyone next Tuesday. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care.